right. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Trying to get the mic down here today. Felt like I was breathing in it last time. Somebody just verify you can hear me. Verify you are reading me loud and clear. I would appreciate it. Let me know. Let me know if you can hear me. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome. If you're new to the channel, this is something we do at 10 a.m. Central every Saturday. We basically rate a diet or training myth on a scale of worth it, watch it, or rethink it, which happens to also be the name of the episode, or the series, rather. And today, we got a spicy one today. Today is going to be, we're going to be talking about whether GLP-1 use, or GLP in general use, is considered cheating on diets, okay? So, as a disclaimer, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a chiropractor. I'm not a doctor of any kind. And I'm actually a technical computer dude. So, but I do a lot of research. I do a lot of experimentation with different compounds, medicines, etc. On myself. And I learn from those and I share that information with other people. So that's kind of what I'm here to do today. So where does this come from, right? Where does this myth come from? It comes from, I think, a lot of the health and fitness industry. A lot of people have gotten in shape and kept in, or maybe have kept in shape their whole life without the use of these GLP drugs. And so they kind of have a chip on their shoulder. And to be quite honest, I did too. When I lost my initial weight, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder, you know, like people were like, "Oh, are you on Ozempic?" And I'm like, "No, not on Ozempic." And it's true. I didn't use any kind of GLP drug to get down to what was my leanest, which was 158 pounds, down from 240 pounds. I didn't use a single GLP related drug at all. In fact, I didn't even use any fat burners like clenbuterol or anything like that. Um, I did it just on testosterone replacement therapy, and by changing my diet and doing a lot of exercise, a lot of calorie cutting, etc. So yeah, I used to have a little bit of chip on my shoulder, but I've changed my tune quite a bit. And let me just kind of share a story with you on what changed my mind. So about a year ago, I got down to my leanest, which was 158 pounds. I had a goal. Essentially, I started on my birthday on April 14th of 2025. I said, I'm going to get down to 8% body fat. I want to get down below 10% body fat. And I want to, yeah, I want to do that. And I want to do it in 20 weeks. So for 20 weeks, I cut my calories. I did quite a bit of cardio because I had cut my calories a little too deep. So I had to do even more cardio. I've learned a lot since then. But yeah, I got down to 7%. So I got a DEXA scan and I was 7.1% body fat. Now DEXAs can be off between 1 and 3%, but still, let's just say it was 10%. Okay, worst case scenario. So I was extremely thin. The thinnest I've been in my adult life, that's for sure. Maybe I've been that thin in my early 20s, but that's 20 plus years ago. So very thin. And then something happened. So as I hit my goal and I started to work my weight back up in my bulk phase, what I call it, or growth phase, to put on muscle, I experienced something I've never experienced before, and it was actually something that they refer to as food noise. And I'd never had this before. And basically, what it was I couldn't do anything without thinking about eating. Like when I first got up in the morning, when I was brushing my teeth and getting ready for work, even while I was working, etc. All I could think about was eating food. Like it was deafening. Like I couldn't concentrate. It was really, really hard. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, what is this? And uh, I think what it came down to is it's a phenomenon that I've heard other people talk about who are struggling to lose weight. They're like, "Hey man, I'm hungry all the time, and all I can think about is eating, and until I eat, I can't stop thinking about it. And even when I do eat, a couple hours later, it starts all over again, and that's why I'm overweight." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're weak. You got low willpower." That was what I used to think. Not quite that harshly, but I'm like, honestly, I'm empathetic to that. And but I didn't understand, like, because I'd never had that feeling. But I definitely felt that after I got down to sub 10% body fat. And essentially, that was my body screaming that you're starving, and your sole purpose in life right now is to get some fat on your body so we don't die. I mean, that's basically what my subconscious was driving me to do. And the subconscious is a very, very, very strong influencer over us. But we have to embrace it. We have to listen to it, to embrace it, understand what it's trying to tell us, and then make a decision on our own. But yeah, it was brutal. So at the time, I decided to get on Retatrutide, or GLP-3, as it's sometimes referred to as, which is an experimental drug, weight loss drug that is kind of circulating out there on various internet marketplaces. So I decided to do that. I decided to get on Retatrutide, and it was miraculous. Like within a couple weeks, that food noise was gone. I was able to control my eating a lot better. Like, because it was so bad, like I would eat and I would have to leave the house after I ate what I was supposed to eat, so that I didn't continue to eat, because I had a really hard time stopping. It was really impactful. But Retatrutide was amazing. It really helped that. So that's where I kind of changed my tune, and I have a whole new sympathy and understanding for people who have this food noise 24/7, 365. Like, it's brutal, absolutely brutal. So what's behind this, right? So I don't know. So one thing is, if you've had this food drive before, or this food noise before, let me know in the comments, and let me know kind of how it affected you, and what are some of the ways that you dealt with it. If you didn't go on a GLP or something like that, how did you deal with it? Because I did a lot of things, like I would like the leaving the house thing, etc. But ultimately, it took me getting on Retatrutide. I mean, I guess I could have just eaten and gotten my body fat up, and it probably would have went away, but that was not in line in the goals that I had at the time. I wanted to build more muscle than fat, and so I needed a way to accomplish that, and Retatrutide helped me do that. So let me know in the comments, in the chat, if you've ever experienced anything like that. It was brutal. Let's talk a little bit about what the drive is behind that, right? So there are reward mechanisms in our brain, that essentially drive us to thinking about food. There's hormones in our body, like one called ghrelin, that causes it's a hunger hormone. And some people have higher ghrelin drive than others. Some people are more sensitive to ghrelin, so they feel hunger a lot more than other people. But the thing I experienced was really I think around dopamine, right? That reward system in our brain, and whenever I would eat, it would kind of check that box and make me feel kind of all warm inside. So, warm and fuzzy. So that's what Retatrutide kind of targeted, and that's what these GLP drugs do, is that they've been known to help with some of this reward system in our brain, so that we don't have to constantly crave food and things like that. In fact, there's even some people that are experimenting with it for other types of addiction, like gambling and drugs and things like that. So it's really fascinating how these drugs work, but that's just one way that they work. Now let's talk a little bit about. I'm not going to go into a deep dive of how these drugs really work. This is more about just some anecdotal kind of information sharing. There's plenty of people online that are way smarter than me that can talk all about the chemistry, about how GLP-1s work. I just want to kind of share some anecdotal information, and some things to think about. So it sounds great, right? Like, you can get on these drugs and you can lose a ton of weight. So what are the drawbacks? Well, the first one is muscle loss. Like, that is definitely one thing that you have to be cognizant of. And the thing about it is, though, is that GLP-1 drugs get a bad rap when it comes to muscle loss. They're like, oh yeah, I mean, you get on those, you're gonna lose all your muscle. But at the same time, if you restrict your calories and you diet hard, meaning you cut your calories deep, and you don't strength train, meaning lifting weights or do some kind of resistance training, you will also lose muscle. Anytime that you are in a caloric deficit, if you're not stimulating your muscles, your body will consume that muscle to basically stay alive. It prefers actually to use muscle because it's easy to break down and use. It doesn't want to burn down all your fat. That's your survival mechanism, right? So it makes total sense. So while the muscle loss with GLP drugs is a true thing, it can also happen if you don't use GLP drugs and medications to lose weight. You can also experience this with just general weight loss as a whole. So it's really important that if you're using GLP-1s or you are in a caloric deficit, you have to keep your resistance training up or you will lose muscle. That is just a fact. Now, if you are massively overweight and you have a ton of fat stores, the loss of muscle is not really a concern, honestly, in the very beginning. But you should be doing some resistance exercise anyway because it'll help you. I see it as kind of like a doubling of efforts. You've got the caloric deficit happening, and you've also got the strength training. So your body, you're going to get a positive adaptation from your body, strength training, to promote muscle growth and breakdown and regrowth. So it's kind of a double thing. But just know that in the beginning, if you are very, very heavy and have a lot of body fat, like I did when I first started, when I was 230 pounds, losing muscle it's not as much of a concern at the very beginning. The second thing about losing muscle with these GLPs is not just the amount of food that you're eating, but it's also the protein intake that you're eating. When people go into a calorie deficit or eat less than they use, or they get on a GLP drug that takes away the drive and the thinking about food and kills the hunger hormones, you're not taking in food, which also means you're not taking in protein as well. So if you're not taking in protein, then your body doesn't have a way to preserve and repair muscle, right? We need those proteins that we can't make ourselves. They're called essential proteins. We can't make those. We have to get those from food, and we can get them from various types of food. So if you are on GLPs or you're dieting with a caloric deficit or restriction or fasting or whatever, it's important that you keep your daily protein up. And that amount of protein varies based on your age. Like younger children and etc. don't need as much protein from food as we do as we get older, because they are very good at turning over proteins and reusing protein. So they don't need, my 120-pound son doesn't need 120 pounds of protein. That'd be a lot of protein. He doesn't need 1 pound of protein per body pound. He doesn't need that. He can get away with a lot less. But I would say that if you're, as a general guidance, I always try to get 1 gram of protein per pound. That is a good kind of target to aim for. And when I say per pound, I mean per lean pound. So if you're, for example, when I was 240 pounds, I was probably like 140, 150 pounds lean. So 150 grams a day would be what I would consider minimum for me. Now, if you have a kidney condition or where you have impaired kidneys or you have digestive issues, trying to eat that much protein, you'll have to experiment with that and figure out what's right for you and what you can do. Because ultimately, if you're trying to pound a bunch of protein and it's making you sick to where, you have digestive issues and you can't sleep and everything else, there's no point in trying to do it, because like lack of sleep is another thing that will kill your fat loss. Like you have to be able to sleep well to lose fat. That's a fact. So that muscle loss really comes from the caloric deficit, lack of strength training, exercising, and lack of adequate protein intake. So those are just some kind of warnings, if you will, about the GLPs. Now, the other thing that kind of cuts a little bit is a downside is the rebound when you get off of those drugs. So what I mean by rebound is you will if you do not change the amount of food that you consume, as far as from a calorie perspective, and you go back to eating more than your body needs, you will gain that weight back. How much of it? It depends. Like everybody's a little bit different, but I think in the style or in the trials rather, in semaglutide, um, which is like the Gen 1 GLPs, they people gain back 2/3 of the weight. So the good news is though is in all of these trials, the weight gain back was not as much as what was lost. So they still were able to keep off a little bit. But now over time, they don't study these people forever, right? So it could be that 6 months after they stopped tracking them, they gained everything back. So, and more, because that's a general thing that happens with like crash dieting and things, is that you'll lose weight initially, but then you'll gain even more back. That's usually what happens. So the weight gain when you stop taking these medications is a real thing. Just like if you were to diet without these drugs, if you go back to eating the way you were after you diet, so to speak, you will gain your weight back. It's just the way it works. It's because you're eating too many calories. You're eating more calories than your body's using. Just it's a thermodynamics problem, like straight up. The third thing that I would say, so sorry, to close that out, I would just say, you know, you have to be prepared. Like while you're on these medications, the best thing that you can do is start to practice healthy eating habits, like eating out less, controlling what you eat, making smart choices about what you eat. Doesn't mean you can't have a snack and a treat from time to time. I do. I mean, I had half a donut this morning. I would have rather have a full donut, but I had half. Saying, you know what, like it's insane to think that I can lose weight while eating donuts. Like I've lost weight while eating gummy bears and stuff. Like you can do it. It's a math problem when it comes to calories. So, um, hey Eddie, what's up, man? So something to consider there. You have to be practicing these positive, beneficial habits that I've talked about in other videos, etc. And I can help you if you need help. You can reach out to me and I can help you. You have to be establishing those habits while you're on these drugs, so that when you get off the drugs, the habits are in place and you can maintain that weight loss for the rest of your life. And so just something to consider. Like it's not a free ride. Nothing comes free when it comes to using medications and things like this. There's always a draw. There's always a trade off. Always a trade off. The last thing I'll talk about is the side effects of these drugs. Right. So there are some side effects to the drugs. Um, I can talk a little bit about the clinical study side effects that we've seen in the Gen 1, Gen 2 GLPs, that people have experienced. Typically, it's nausea, um, gastric slowness, so bloating, some constipation, sometimes diarrhea, um, indigestion, reflux. Those are all things that you can typically see. With retatrutide, I didn't see those things, but I was on a pretty low dose. Retatrutide for me, I could get away with a low dose because I really wasn't all that. I wasn't grossly overweight, right? I was just trying to kind of maintain a little bit of food noise control. But what I did experience was increased heart rate. So these drugs will increase your heart rate. And while it doesn't sound like a big deal, it can have effects on you. For example, uh, I noticed that my sleep was not quite as restful, and that's because my resting heart rate was like 10 beats per minute higher on retatrutide than it was when I was not on it. So your body's basically kind of in overdrive, right? Like it kind of cranks you up a little bit. And it was insane. Like just to kind of talk about that a minute, the last bulk I did, the last weight gain phase, muscle gain phase that I did, I used retatrutide, and it was amazing how much food I had to eat in order to outdo the increase in metabolism. Like I was eating 42 to 4,300 calories a day just to maintain my weight. I was eating like 600 grams of carbs daily, even on my rest days, to keep my weight the same. I mean, that's just bonkers. For somebody who's 5'8", I mean, that is just bonkers. Like, it's crazy. So, so it will increase your heart rate, etc. And then there are some rarer cases of more severe impact. Okay. Um, before I get into that, let me talk about the nausea for a minute. A lot of people do talk about the nausea. It is a real thing. But if you think about it, like the nausea can actually be a positive thing. While it's a side effect, it's actually, it can be a positive thing because I don't know about you, but when I'm nauseous, I don't want to eat. So it can kind of keep you from, overindulging a bit if you have a little bit of nausea. So the side effect can actually be kind of a plus, if you will. So some of the more rare, more severe side effects that people have seen, right, is really around gallbladder impact. So I actually had a close friend of mine who had to have his gallbladder removed. He was on these medications, but that's true for even people that diet, right? Anytime you change your diet in a massive way, like you do run some risk of some gallbladder impact. I mean, you're changing the way your body is being exposed to food. So it's hard to say, whether this is is causality or if it's just like, well, yeah, you're changing the way you eat, therefore you're going to have gallbladder impact. Don't know. So, something there. There's some cases of pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas. There's also some people that have had I think it's called gastroparesis, which is basically where their gastric motility or the effect of your body moving food through your bowel system like stops. That could be very bad. But it's very small percentages of people that get impacted by this. But you always hear about these, right? You always hear like the worst stories, but it happens to the fewest people. But that seems to be the signal that gets put out the loudest. So, just something to kind of keep in mind. Again, work with your doctor if you're interested in using any of these compounds. Just work with your doctor. I think that's important, and just keep an eye on things. And you can always jump off if it doesn't work out. So what's the verdict here? I've been blabbing on for a bit. What's the verdict? Is this a watch it? Is it a worth it? Watch it or rethink it? I think GLPs are definitely worth it. On the topic of it, whether it being cheating or not, I think people should rethink that. I think GLPs are just a tool to get us to buy us some time to work on what we need to work on. It's the same thing to me as like blood pressure medication that I was on when I was overweight. It was managing my blood pressure so that my body didn't have negative impact while I worked on my diet. Now, is it true that I could stay on blood pressure medication the rest of my life and not work on my diet? Absolutely. But I would have to increase that blood pressure medicine over time because I would just get heavier and heavier and my blood pressure would get higher and higher, and so more medicine would be needed to do that. And that's true for these weight loss things too. I've heard of people on Retatrutide all the way up to 12 milligrams, and that is bonkers. The highest I ever got was two. But I've heard some people that get up to 12. What's crazy is my wife, I gave her 1 milligram and she was throwing up for 3 days. Like, so everybody's different and responds to these drugs a little bit differently. So that's just something to kind of consider. But to me, it's not cheating. It's not. Science is science. These inventions are things that, these inventions are things that they're just tools that we should be able to use. And the people that have lost weight naturally and have been able to keep it off or been fit their whole life, congratulations. It's awesome that you did that. But I don't think it's fair really to put people down for using a tool to help them get healthy. Now, do I agree with people getting on these and then continuing to eat like crap and not exercising and stuff like that? No, I think that's a mistake. And I'm hoping that the medical industry or your doctor, if you're working with them and you're on one of these, is kind of putting you on the spot on that. I think we should have people holding us accountable to making healthier choices about what we eat and how we exercise and moving more, etc., especially if we're on these medications, because this should be seen as a temporary thing to get you in a better place so that you can build skills the rest of your life to get healthy. And that's what we do here at Ironspire Health. So if you need help, there's a link in our bio. You can book a 20-minute free consult session and talk to us about how to do that. We can help you kind of build those habits over time. No gimmicks or anything like that. Just customized programs for people that work for them. I see a question here. Which is better, Ozempic or Mounjaro? So Ozempic is semaglutide. That's the kind of the first generation of of these weight loss drugs. Mounjaro is tirzepatide class, and that's kind of the second one. That's what's called a dual agonist, right? So it acts on GLP-1 and GIP receptors. There, in the studies, people had better results with tirzepatide, so the second generation. And so far in the clinical trials that I think just came to a close on Retatrutide, it's even better. That's a triple agonist. So it's GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon receptor agonists. So it's actually, each one of these drugs is getting better on itself. But what I will say is that just because it's a newer drug doesn't mean it's best for you, right? Let me use an example. So Retatrutide, for example, that did not kill my hunger signaling. Okay, I still felt hungry. So if you're still somebody who the hunger signal alone drives you so hard that you have to binge eat and gain weight, Retatrutide may not be good for you. Whereas semaglutide and tirzepatide, Gen 1, Gen 2s, they actually have some appetite blunting. So there's reports of people that don't get as hungry on those. So just because Retatrutide is the newest doesn't mean it's the best for you. So what I would recommend is trying the one that you and your doctor kind of meet and talk about and decide that's best for you. And if you try tirzepatide and you hate it, try semaglutide and see how that works out. I think in the trials, tirzepatide actually did end up with better weight loss and more conservative lean mass loss. And so I think it's, on paper it's better, but again, everybody's different. Everybody's different. It's the same thing with all these prescriptions for weight loss, or I'm sorry, for blood pressure, etc. One may work terrible for you, but great for somebody else, like brother and sister even. It's crazy how these things work. So you have to, I think it's with a lot of things with diet and becoming more healthy, you have to find what works for your body because everybody is very different. If I don't eat carbs in the morning, like I talked about in the last episode, if I don't eat carbs in the morning, I can't think at work. And there's other people that eat carbs in the morning, they get tired and they can't work because they get sleepy. So like everybody is different, and you have to find what's right for you. And the only way to find what works for you is to experiment and just take note. I think that's the biggest thing, is don't be afraid to experiment, for sure. I was skinny in my marching band days. Absolutely. Yeah. I was, what, $130, like 130 pounds. Yeah. I haven't seen 130 pounds in a while. In fact, this morning I weighed in 192 pounds. Okay. So on June 18th, I was 168 pounds. Okay. I'm 192 pounds. I'm trying not to freak out, but, I'm getting bigger. Yeah. It's getting bonkers. Yeah. Even my wife, Jennifer, is like, you're looking pretty big. I'm like, and not like mega fat, just like, I'm like glycogen filled out. It's pretty funny. I look like I don't know, like a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man or something. I don't know. Anyway. All right. So what questions? So yeah, like I said, I'm not against these drugs. I think they're fantastic. I think we're going to continue to see, now they're starting to like research if myostatins could be added to preserve some muscle, like with AI coming in and all this research and the popularity of these weight loss drugs, we're just going to continue to see these things improve. I think the big question to ask ourselves here is like the long-term impact. Like, for example, I used Retatrutide for over a year. Like, how do I know in 20 years I'm not going to have cancer from that? We don't know. Like, the drug hasn't been out that long. But at the same time, if you're 200-300 pounds, or you're 50 to 100 pounds overweight, I guess the question I would ask is like, well, we know for a fact that being overweight will cause, heart disease, diabetes, etc., that will absolutely kill you. So what's riskier, right? Trying out one of these drugs and losing weight and getting healthier, or just waiting to get diabetes or heart disease or both and die. So you have to kind of like put it all in perspective when it comes to being overweight too. So, why do you think your weight went up? Yeah, so I'm definitely in a bulk phase right now. So I just, this is not, this is a more advanced thing for after, like, once you lose weight and you get to a weight where you're happy and you have goals maybe to put on muscle. You may want to consider eating in a caloric uh, surplus, or eating more than your body needs and training hard to build muscle. And that's what I'm doing. That's the concept of bulking, right? I do not follow the Lee Priest dirty bulk theory. That I think I dirty bulked for 25 years. I was pretty heavy. um, but I do eat at a surplus, and I've been eating for the last week. I've been eating at a massive surplus. My hunger is just very high right now. I'm training very, very hard. So my body is just craving food, and I'm getting it done, but my waist is staying the same size. So I measure my waist. That's kind of my litmus test to see if I'm putting on a lot of body fat, because that's where I put my fat on, is around my waist. So I kind of use that waist as a gauge. And yeah, it's gone, I think I've added an inch to my waist since I've been bulking, but I already know I can lose weight. So it's just a matter of taking that fat off when I'm done. You can't really build muscle without putting some fat on. That's just the way it is. And I found that I did kind of what's called a lean bulk last time, where I kind of just ate just a little bit more than I needed to gain to put on muscle, and I felt like my results were kind of subpar. This time, my strength is bonkers increasing, and so the food is definitely working for sure. Yeah, felt sick on Ozempic and gastric motility changes. Yeah, absolutely. Those are all things that are known with these drugs. In fact, they're kind of part of the design of the drug, is to slow down digestion so that you feel full longer, right? But it does affect people in different ways, and some people have it more severe than others. I never had any kind of gastric slowness but I was on a very low dose with Retatrutide. So, but Jennifer, my wife, for example, on Retatrutide gets very nauseous. I don't have a lot of nausea unless I push my dose high. That's I've experimented with 2.5 milligrams, and it did make me feel nauseous. But at the same time, like I said before, I think the nausea can actually be an appetite control mechanism, right? We don't like to eat when we're nauseous, so it kind of cuts both ways there. But definitely, you're going to see it. There's a high probability you're going to have nausea and slow motility for sure with these drugs. Yeah. That's per person, absolutely. Do I think it's a bad thing? It can be, absolutely. Like if you're constipated and stuff, that could be very, very unsettling. So I think the trick there is, work with your doctor. Maybe it's a dose change, might be a drug class change. You may need to go from tirzepatide to semi, or semi to tirzepatide, whatever, right? So I would just say work with your doctor and experiment. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm bulky. My calories. So for example, last 2 days I've eaten 4,500 calories a day. So I'm eating a lot of food. Yeah. And what's crazy is I'm still waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning starving. Go figure that one out. It's insane. Yeah. But I'll tell you, my training's nuts. Like yeah, my training is just crazy. If you go out to the DFW Texas Iron Facebook page, and I reposted it on my Facebook, you'll see our leg training from yesterday, and my legs are crushed today. Like they are just brutalized. We were bonkers yesterday. We went nuts. But anyway, yeah, cool. Yeah, sorry, I got kind of technical there. Sorry. But yeah, I do tend to get a little technical. Call me out on that. Keep me honest there. I don't mean to. I'm not trying to talk like smarter than I am or anything. It's just sometimes I default to some of these terms that I've learned and etc. But I definitely, my goal for a lot of this information is for it to be for the masses, so that anybody can understand how it works. So keep me honest on that. I would say, give me feedback there. Appreciate that. Buff, stay puffed. That's pretty funny. I'm swole. Yeah, I'm swole, all right. 192 pounds, man. I'll tell you, like, I can feel I could feel 192 pounds. Like it, like my breathing, cardio's harder. It's hard to get comfortable at night. Like I can definitely feel 192 pounds. As I push my weight up, it gets harder. Yeah, it just becomes more uncomfortable. I sweat more. Like it's kind of brutal. All right. Let's see. I'll do a last call for questions here and we'll wrap things up. But hopefully this was helpful. And if you have an idea for like a topic that you want to see me talk about on this show, post it in the chat. I mean, I've got a long list of stuff that I have kind of queued up to talk about, but I will always bump that stuff lower or later down the chain for anybody that wants to ask anything. A lot of people did respond to my intermittent fasting. You know, there was a lot of great comments about, hey, you're kind of minimalizing the way intermittent fasting works. There's a lot of benefits to it, etc. And I'm absolutely not saying intermittent fasting doesn't have benefits. What I am saying, though, is that when you're first trying to establish healthy habits and you're first starting out, something like intermittent fasting might be tough to do because, you know, that hunger signaling is so high that you binge eat and then you just undo the whole point of what intermittent fasting does. You know, if somebody's arguing with me that if you eat 3,000 calories and you intermittent fast and you eat 3,000 calories and you don't, an intermittent fasting person will lose weight and the other one won't, I will argue that till I die because that does not compute with me. Absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, we'll wrap things up there. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, I would encourage you to subscribe. If you like the video, like it. If you want to, like I said, if you want me to cover something, put it in the comments. Or if you want to talk, you want to book a session, you know, book that 20-minute consult session. I'm happy to help out. If you want to book a longer session, 60 minutes, $75. Like it's not, these days it's a lot of money. But it's honestly, it's less than a grocery trip. I can tell you that for a fact, because I went to the grocery store today. I barely got anything. It was still $75. So, yeah, but I know money's tight with everybody. So if you can't pay 75 and you want to work with me, ping me, you know, just email me, let me know. And I'm happy to help you out, with what I can. Let's see, how to mitigate. Did you talk about how to mitigate the negative side effects? You know, I didn't really. Yeah. So, you know, with nausea and stuff, I think the biggest thing is dosage adjustment. It might be if you're getting like severe nausea and constipation and other things like that, you may just be too high, or it might be the class of drug. You know, you may have to try something else. But you know, there are other medications that you can take for nausea and things like that. But at that point, you know, you're just kind of compounding medicines together and you're treating side effects with other medicines. And once you get down that road, I just feel like it's like, why am I doing this to begin with? You know what I mean? And I try to apply that same concept with everything that I do, even with some of the, you know, more anabolic compounds that I use. I try not to add more compounds to deal with the side effects of other compounds. Like I just try, it just muddies the water and creates a lot of complexity. So, yeah. Um, let's see, other side effects. Yeah, I would just say, you know, oh, Yoki's wanting in on the webcast. I don't know if y'all heard that, but Yoki, our older cat, the door's shut, so he's not pleased with that. But anyway, man, hopefully the mic picked that up. That was hilarious. That was loud too. But yeah, if you have an idea for the show, put it in the comments. But other than that, let's sign off for today. But hey, if you're on your health journey, keep up the great work. I know you can do it, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.